Hello, beautiful people, and welcome to a new episode of Polemic Nation. Polemic Nation is a space in which we talk about different topics that tend to be controversial or even ignored by mass media. I believe that one of the biggest problems of the world is the ignorance and the lack of concise and objective information out there. So, when I first started Polemic Nation, I was thinking of the whole world as one nation, hoping to bring guests and experts from different places across the world that can benefit someone from the other places of the world. So, welcome to Polemic Nation. You can now find our Facebook page to see updates and more information about our guests. And you can listen to this podcast in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, TuneIn, and many other podcast platforms. So, without further ado, our guest today is Michael Sapiro, Dr. Michael Sapiro. He is a clinical psychologist, Dharma teacher, meditation researcher, workshop and retreat leader, and former Buddhist monk. How are you today, Michael?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me on your show.
Yeah, thank you so much for your time for being here. So, our topic today is meditation and social justice and how these two interact with each
Mhm.
other. So, I think the first question would be, what is meditation?
Yeah, that's an interesting question because you would think it would be a simple answer, but it's really not.
Mhm.
Especially from a scientific point of view, when we're researching meditation, it's hard to define. Is it something you're doing with your mind? Is it partly focus or concentration? Is it something you're doing with your emotions, or are you visualizing? So what I know as a student and as a teacher and as a researcher, it's both a practice, something we sit down to do intentionally, and then it's a state of being, a place that we live from, a meditative state of peace, compassion, kindness, love. And so we do both. We both practice meditation, and there's a variety of practices we engage in, but then we take it into our lives in the way we relate to people, and the way we treat ourselves and others, and the way we do our politics and create policy. That's where it actually blends into social justice and politics. But we'll talk about that later. So meditation is really a practice and then a way of being.
Last night when I was getting ready for this interview, I read a lot of your essays and your conferences. I know it sounds creepy, but I just wanted to be ready for the interview. And you wrote something that I really like that I want to quote here. You said, "Beyond the thinking is the source of our thoughts. Beyond the eyes is the source of our seeing. And so too, beyond our beings is the source of our being. And each religion offers us this unique experience of union through meditation, the study of the self." And I think it's super cool that you bring here the concept of religion because I think that is what it is. It should be the path for us to find kindness and to be the best version of ourselves and to be kind to others and to be the best person that we can be. A lot of people get lost in this definition and they do wars based on religion and they tend to
Mhm.
have strong arguments about this. So when you meditate, do you pray to a specific God or supernatural force?
That's an awesome question. Well, I grew up Jewish, and then I very early on in my teens started practicing Buddhism.
Mhm.
Lived in temples, became a monk, and the Buddhist religion is different than Buddhist psychological practices. Buddhism is a science of mind. It helps us look inward and see how our mind is functioning, how our psychology is playing out in our life. But of course, I did grow up with God, the Judeo-Christian version of God, but there was always something missing for me. There was a real direct experience I was longing for that in my Jewish tradition actually didn't teach. And so what I did was find mysticism to be really the path that I've been on religiously. And every religion has a mystical component to it. Uh, Kabbalah, um, there's for Judaism, there's Sufism in the mystic Islam tradition. So every religion has a practice that brings us to the source itself rather than the middle ground where we have to go through priests and dogma and rituals and things. So what I prefer is a religion that brings the source of all life directly into our experience itself. So when I pray, I'm what I'm really doing is talking to the universe, to the mystery of it all that resides in me and around me and in everything I meet, the rocks, spider webs, waterfalls, other people. So my practice brings me to touch the source of life, whatever that is. It's a mystery, but it resides in me and in you, and it's full of love. It's radiant and full of love, and it's felt. And so when I start experiencing that, it becomes very difficult to hurt other people, because hurting other people is literally hurting God, hurting the mystery, hurting the divine that lives within us. So really personally, I integrate a lot of practices, yogic, Buddhist, Jewish, and even Christian mysticism. I spend mornings reading about Christian mysticism after my meditations.
I've been saying in pretty much all the episodes of the last 6 months that we're living in difficult times and that everybody needs like something that makes them feel better. And I think that meditation is a great solution for that. There are many people right now who maybe haven't had any experience with meditation and maybe they feel that they don't need it. So, what would be like some basics or essentials that people should know about meditation, or some like basic meditation processes that you could recommend for them?
Yeah, that's a great direct question, and it's really important to know that meditation is difficult, and so then it's not going to always feel comfortable. People often look for bliss and well-being right away, and if it doesn't give it to you, they're like, "Well, f this practice. It's too hard," or "I'm not feeling the peace I want." Well, when I'm working with patients, the truth is you actually have to touch upon your pain to find the peace you're looking for. You can't
Mhm.
do it without it. You can't do it without embracing sadness, grief, guilt. And so meditation actually puts you very close to those feelings, those emotions. And so a lot of people don't want to deal with it because they've been avoiding those feelings most of their life through drugs or sex or gambling or overeating or just numbing ourselves out in any way. And so meditation does put you in touch with those kind of difficult states, which is difficult. So what we first want to do is really get a sense of our own experience. So meditation in the beginning and the end also brings us to self-awareness. So we sit down, we breathe deeply and slowly so that our nervous system relaxes, so that we can have a clear mind. And then we start observing ourselves. What am I thinking? What am I feeling? What am I sensing? So meditation in the beginning, but throughout all the practices, has a lot to do with self-awareness. And that's the first place I would recommend starting, is getting an app, because it's really hard for our minds to focus if we're not used to it. So getting an app, a free app like Insight Timer or something. I'm not paid by them, but that's a good app that I recommend.
Me neither.
Um,
Mhm.
Okay. I use it myself, and I have all my clients and patients use it. So sitting down with some guided meditation, because our mind has a tendency to wander away all the time. So when you're doing guided meditation, like one by Jack Cornfield or Tara Brach, they really help you bring your mind's attention into the body and into the breath. And then you can start seeing yourself clearly.
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest misconceptions about meditation is like maybe they've seen it in the movies or somewhere that you have to clear your mind, and that's something really hard to do. Like I was like,
Totally.
okay, stop thinking about something, and then like you start thinking about the things that worry you and that you are mad about or that you're sad about. And what you're saying is that we have to embrace these thoughts and be aware of them. So I think that's really a good place to start.
Yeah, we want to start with something called radical inclusion. Everything is included in our meditation practice. So the first 10 minutes of every meditation practice I do, which is every day, I just let my mind do it at once, because I know it's going to try to do it anyway. So I'm going, oh, you want to think about that? Oh, that's important. Oh, yeah, that person really hurt you, didn't they? Oh, yeah, I'm really sad about this thing. So I just witness what my mind really wants me to see, because those are important. But I give it space, I welcome it. And then after a while, because I'm still doing my breathing practice, my nervous system relaxes. And then the thoughts tend to slow down. And then I'm able to bring my mind from the thoughts back to the breath. Now, that's just me giving space to my thoughts, but I'm simultaneously working on deep breathing, slow breathing, and I'm always returning my breath, my attention to the thoughts. Excuse me. I'm always returning my attention to breathing. Even though I'm giving my mind space to think, I'm actually bringing my own attention back to breathing so that within a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, my mind is now settled on my breath. I'm resting my mind on my body or on my breath, which is really hard to do right from the get go if you're not trained. So that's why we give ourselves a little space to think, but really you're training your mind to reside its attention or rest its attention on the breath, on the body, and eventually those thoughts just kind of dissipate and they become quiet. Not the rest of your life, just for that meditation period, you know?
And you can do this pretty much anywhere, right? Like if you are getting stressed at work, when you have a lot of thoughts and things like that, if you start being more conscious about your breath, that's going to help you eventually, right? Like slowing down your breath and embracing your thoughts. If you,
Absolutely. So when I lived in San Francisco, or around San Francisco, I meditated on the BART, which is the train that takes you back and forth. And when I worked in Oakland, I did that. I do it on buses. I've done it in caves. I sit, it's what I recommend is you wake up and you immediately sit up, put your back against the wall and practice. Do your first practice as soon as you get up. This is a practice to do anywhere. And honestly, I don't really want to like spend a lot of time in my thoughts. I don't want to spend time in my thoughts. They're awful most of the time. I like have a tormented mind. That's not where I want to put my attention. I want to put it on something. I don't neglect it, but I also bring my attention to the basics of my body sensations and my breathing, and then my nervous system calms down and I feel more at ease, more at peace, to then have clarity about what I'm thinking, because our minds lie to us all the time. They create fictions and fantasies. We torment ourselves, or we just basically lie and say that person, thinks this about us. And we're like, you actually have no idea. So then you spend the whole day fighting a fantasy. So what we want to do is get really calm and at ease to see clearly. And that's called insight. Now we start having insight into our own mind, others' minds, into the nature of reality. Yeah.
awesome. Yeah. So now that we know and understand what meditation is, what is the relationship between meditation and social justice?
Well, so again, I want to start with meditation is the act of self awareness. And once you start having this self awareness, you see yourself clearly. You start to see all the wounding that we have in our life, maybe from our parents or culture, our society, when we're given messages about our self worth, dependent on our religion, the color of our skin, our sexuality, our gender, these things that ultimately have innate messages from the world, like being good or bad, high or low. There's lots of this duality of like good and bad. If you look like this, you're bad. So if you look like this, you're supposed to be good. These are messages we're getting through the media, our teachers, mass religion, dominant religion, I mean. So like we grow up and we get all this wounding in us, and meditation shows it to us very clearly. And meditation also provides the healing, which is love. So the more we do meditation, the more we have access to love, universal love, unconditional love, which we then pair with our own wounding. So when we're sitting feeling hurt from our wounding, we start tending to our wounding. We start being careful with it, mindful of it, and we start loving on ourselves. And that gives us some healing. But then we also see, if we're doing this to ourselves, if we're healing ourselves, we then have a responsibility to heal other people. We have a responsibility not to hurt other people, because we understand there's an independent nature, that my well-being and your well-being are aligned together. And so here's where social justice comes out. The more I've sat meditation, the more I realize I have a responsibility to take care of the wounded in the world. The more I have a responsibility to be aware of oppression and marginalization, how microaggressions are in the world and where I'm doing them. Where are my transgressions? Where am I being slightly racist, even though maybe in my heart I don't believe I am, but am I acting in a certain way? It sounds, yeah. So you want to join in the conversation? I saw
No,
you look alive right there.
yeah, no, I'm processing. I'm like, I'm feeling it. Yeah, so I would like everybody that is listening right now to think of like one moment in which we have felt this hurt, humiliation, whatever you have been feeling based on the color of your skin, your gender, your age, because I think that the most important part of this is like feeling it, feeling the way that hurts so that you don't repeat that behavior. That is, in essence, what you're saying, right?
Yeah, see, hurt people hurt people. That's what we know. And we're
Hmm.
all generally hurt in our own ways. So once we start tending and healing our own hurt, it becomes clear that we don't want to hurt others. But what does that really mean? It means being aware of the various ways that people are hurt because their skin or their gender or sexuality or age is seen as a less than, it's seen as an other. And so instead of including and belonging, they feel isolated. People start feeling on the outs, and that's where we have our deepest wounding, is when we don't feel a sense of belonging. Meditation first helps us belong with ourselves. We don't reject any part of ourself, and once we stop rejecting ourselves, becomes easy to include other people. It becomes easy to start caretaking for other people who are different. So the more I tend to myself, the more responsibility I have to care for other people.
That's amazing. I'm still processing this. Um, so for someone who is being rejected, like maybe someone who's being bullied at school, this process is not easy. This can take a lot of time and meditations and processes, right?
Yeah, this is a very difficult path. And are you saying for the person who's bullied that, yeah, it starts off with self-awareness. Wow, I'm hurt. I'm angry. My body's tense and tight. I have all these beliefs that I'm less than, or I have all this anger that I shouldn't be treated this way. We just start becoming aware of ourselves, and then we tend to ourselves with compassion. We can talk to ourselves. I'm so sorry this hurts. I'm sorry for myself that I'm going through this. But it doesn't mean we pity. This is different. People get thinking I'm teaching self-pity. Self-pity is indulging thoughts that, oh, this sucks and I hate being here and I wish it wasn't like this. And then we just stay in this despairing mode. Compassion is not that. Compassion is being aware that we're hurting and being with our suffering in that way and doing something about it. Compassion is the act to urge from love to heal ourselves, and then we can start healing other people. So if we're in a position of being bullied and being oppressed, we first want to have compassion for ourselves, for the suffering we're experiencing. And then ultimately we have compassion for those who are hurting us. They must be really hurt to be so violently angry. They must be so hurt to be that kind of hateful. They must be hurt to be that kind of ignorant. Like, can you imagine the person bullying you, what they've experienced to be that kind of angry, violent, aggressive person? And so after we learn to love ourselves, we can start loving other people who even are hurting us. And that is a difficult concept. That is very difficult to start imagining loving on people that hurt us. But that's where universal healing comes from. It comes from loving ourselves and then learning to love others. That doesn't mean putting up with it. It might mean having fierce protective boundaries. It might mean saying, no, I'm not having you in my life in any way. But it doesn't mean we close our hearts, because closing our heart then takes away love from the world. And love is the only thing that's going to heal us and heal the perpetrators and heal those who are oppressing. Love is the only thing that does that. So we have to tend to ourselves first. And meditation is the process of going inward and seeing when we need that love from ourselves to ourselves.
But you cannot like influence that love into the bully. You can love yourself and find that um self peace, but if that person is still bullying you, there's no way that you're gonna change the other person. You just learn to accept it and live with it, right?
Well, I'm not sure that's true. I do know that studies of mass meditation have an impact on the crime rate of cities. So when they have over 1,000 people practicing meditation at one time together, there was a study, I think it was Washington, D.C., where it was done by a group from a transcendental meditation researchers. They found the crime rate reduced for the day. So now, you could say all the meditators were the ones doing the crime. So when they were meditating, they didn't have the time to do it. Or you can say there's some kind of subtle influence that our attention, intention, and love has on the world around us. The Dalai Lama said he will not tolerate one Chinese person being hurt in the effort for Tibet to be free. So the Dalai Lama, the head of the Tibetan people who is exiled from his homeland, in order to get his people back, he won't tolerate one Chinese person being hurt in the process. And they're the ones who kicked the Tibetans out of their country. In general, the government did. So that's what it looks like to be ultimately loving and compassionate, even though he longs for nothing than to get his bullied people back into their home. He won't tolerate anybody being hurt for it. So it does have an impact in the world. And also having really strong boundaries does help a bully. It helps a bully reflect on themselves. If we don't internalize what the bully's doing to us, if we stand strong, be grounded, feel empowered, and we say, no, I'm no longer tolerating this, that becomes a mirror for the bully to reflect on themselves. Whether they do or don't is not our business, but we're presenting a mirror of firm compassion back, and that will have an ultimate impact on their psyche. We don't know how, but we have to have faith that doing our work will impact other people.
I almost feel now that meditation should be part of our daily basis and that it should be mandatory in schools and in all of the workplaces. Because imagine if we can get one school to meditate, then the kids will start to reflect on their behaviors, their mistakes. Why are they attacking their classmates? Why are they maybe harassing? Because a lot of these behaviors start from very early ages.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
also in workplaces, because I've been talking about school, but maybe also there are people always in the office, like someone who is a little bit mean or someone who is a little bit aggressive. Reflecting on all of these behaviors could really have a really positive impact in our daily life.
I believe that. And I think there are really good programs happening around the country in schools and in workplaces. And at first, the workplace wants better productivity. That's why they're doing meditation. They know if they teach meditation, their employees will have better focus and concentration, which will ultimately increase productivity. All right. That's the first goal of an organization. That's not my goal, but that's their goal. But what they find is that people become more sociable, more inclusive, more caring of themselves and others. There's less burnout, less sick time being taken. And so the same thing at schools, they're finding kids are having less instances of bullying or being bullied. Their kids are being more able to pay attention, and so their grades are going up because they're able to sit and sustain concentration on their activities. Meditation has such a variety of benefits. It also has there's things that people struggle with. They have to see themselves more carefully and closely, and that could bring up more pain for people. But ultimately, meditation has been shown to have a lot of positive effects on businesses, on schools, on children. And in Asia, where I lived in Thailand, students start off with meditation before they even go into their classes. Now, I don't know how it helps. I haven't seen any research, but I do know being around the kids and the staff and the teachers, there's a general calm and well-being that I didn't find in American schools because of the stress levels. So
That
that's
is,
my personal experience. Yeah.
wow, that's really cool. That's really fascinating. And a lot of this, I think, starts with the power of the mind and thinking how the world would be a better place if we start making these practices. Like, I think in one of the videos in your website, someone said that Martin Luther King said, I have a dream, like thinking of how the future would look like if things were different. Because if we start thinking of how these things would look different, then that will motivate us to be better people, to have better behaviors, and
Mm-hmm.
to stop attacking people and to be nicer.
Yeah,
Right?
so I remember Cassandra Vieten, my teaching partner, quoting Martin Luther King in that. And, we've all heard, I have a dream, but we don't really think about what that actually means. He had a heart vision. He had a vision from his heart, not just his cognitive center of self, but his heart itself had a vision of humanity equalizing itself, having less racial injustice, having more love and resources for everybody, regardless of skin color. He literally visioned this from his heart space and then spent his life's work working toward that vision. So what I would, and I do work with futurists, and what futurists do is, can we imagine and vision a future that has those qualities of equality, love, compassion, embedded in medicine, embedded into the school systems, embedded into technology. We're the ones who have to do it. You and me and everyone listening have to envision a future where the qualities of living come from equality, from justice, from compassion. And then we have to create our systems of thinking, our systems of school and business and technology and medicine with those qualities in mind. That's the only way the future will become that thing, is us doing it, living now in the present, creating a future that comes out of that vision.
And people want this. People have been manifesting, like we saw the Black Lives Matter movement rising this year. People know that there is something not working in our place. Like if there were more people representing different backgrounds in these roles of power, that would look so different because the people right now are not representing their needs. People know that this is wrong, and we can start making small actions to make this happen little by little, but we're going to get there.
Yes, little by little is actually how I believe things are done. And this is where meditation becomes so important because it stabilizes us and grounds us in this well being that we're hoping the world has. We have to do our own work first. We have to do it on our mats and our cushions, sitting in a BART, sitting on the train, going into a store when we're agitated by the lights and all the people. We have to meditate and find that grounding and stability and bring that into the world and be the non-anxious presence everybody needs.
Absolutely. And I just want to emphasize that everybody needs to meditate. And I just want to talk about my personal experience here. I was like, I am fine. I don't need to meditate. But my body started to tell me that I was stressed. I started grinding my teeth at night. And then I had like big heart rate increases. So that's how I realized that I was stressed. Like I was kind of ignoring the problems or what was going on, which is something that you mentioned earlier. But I think that all of us would benefit from meditation, even if we think that we have things under control, because we are all exposed to, different problems, different situations that maybe we don't realize that they affect us, but they do. And from what you have been saying, meditation is embracing these emotions, identifying them, knowing how to treat them, and not try to hide them with something that is not beneficial for us.
Yes, exactly. You know, we talked about big picture today. The big picture of meditation is about love, self-love, other love. But the actual day-to-day is very concrete. You sit, you follow your breath, you tend to your body, you see emotions coming up and you tend to them like you would if you had a child. You don't ignore them, you welcome them, you tend to them, you nurture them. And there are all kinds of different meditation practices: compassion, loving kindness, attention, concentration, insight, all of these different. So, whoever's listening, you can look all of these types of meditation up. The best thing I recommend doing is joining a group right now online, finding a teacher, getting a guide, or sitting with Insight Timer or Headspace and just every day practicing 5 to 10 minutes, if you can, 20 minutes of a meditation practice that really works for you. And then doing it for a few years, that's when you're going to see the long-term changes, not just a week or a month or even 6 months. Really committing to something for like a year or 2 years, you'll see so many benefits you could never have imagined.
Yes, absolutely. And you organize some of these groups, right, Michael? Or retreats, groups, classes?
Used to. I mean, COVID has definitely done a thing on teaching. I used to teach at Esalen. I might still do, but there's nothing happening. I teach locally where I live. I do webinars and podcasts, but right now, there are no like real in-person retreats. So yes, I do lead those and people can find me on my website, but I'm really focusing on community health right now locally. And once COVID lifts and shifts, I should be back into teaching around the country and the world with my teaching partners. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes. Thank you so much for your time, Michael. So can you mention your website or when people can find you, because COVID's gonna end soon and people would wanna go to a retreat. Like I saw the picture of Thailand. It looks super beautiful. I wanna go there so bad. But where can
Yeah,
people
yeah,
find you?
that's right. I lead retreats in Thailand. I was supposed to co-lead in Italy this 2021. We don't know what's happening. Esalen Institute. My website's just my name, michaelsapiro.com. And I'm sure you'll post it on your site so they can find it. That's the best way of finding out what my work is. All the podcasts I've been on are there. A lot of my Dharma or meditation teachings are on my website, some of my articles and presentations. So people can find me there. And I know this was, again, big picture, but I also teach, the daily kind of practices we were also talking about. So yeah, thank you again for having me on your show today.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. And thank you so much, everybody, for listening. Remember to follow our Facebook page, Polemic Nation. You can listen to us in Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music. And remember to leave us a review if there are any specific topics that you would like me to cover. Thank you so much for your time. And until next time.